Hi, I'm Chad, and this is my new race bike. It is a 2013 Triumph Daytona 675R, and it is what I will be running for the entirety of the California Road Race Association's 2023 season as an expert. Now, if you've been subscribed to the channel and been following along on my racing journey, you will know that I also own a 2012 Triumph Daytona 675R that I have been tracking and racing for the past 2 years. Now, I've grown a lot on that motorcycle. I started off in my amateur racing career and saw it through, went from running at the back of the pack all the way up to winning races on that bike, and it was fantastic. It has been such an incredible machine. It has done so well despite being crashed 3 times and fixed, and I really couldn't have asked for a better first race bike. Now, towards the end of last year, I was thinking about 2023 and what I wanted to do in terms of racing, what kind of a bike I wanted to race, and how I wanted to make my expert debut. And initially, I was thinking about jumping up into the 1000 class, racing superbikes, either a Yamaha R1 or an Aprilia RSV4. Those were at the top of my list. However, I made another big life decision later on last year and bought my dream car, which was a 2009 Audi R8. So I bought the R8 knowing that that was going to be at the expense of a race bike for early this year, and I was planning to just run my 2012 Daytona 675R for the first half of the season at the very least, if not all of it, as an expert. But a really great opportunity presented itself. A friend of mine, Jay, actually bought this bike and decided the ergos weren't really for him. He couldn't really jive with it after a couple track days, so he ended up selling it to me. Now, there's a couple reasons that I was able to make this work. The first being the money. This was much less expensive than an RSV4 and R1 was going to be, so it wasn't too difficult to make it make sense financially. The second reason is because my 2012 Daytona 675R, while still being an incredible race bike and having just won 3 out of 4 races at CVMA 3 weeks ago, it's a bit tired. It's got 15,500 miles on it, and the last 3,500 miles of those have been exclusively on the racetrack and being raced. Now, I've done a great job keeping it in tip-top shape, doing regular maintenance, having checked the valve clearances, changed spark plugs, replaced the timing chain, and a bunch of other maintenance just a few months ago. But I also thought it would be nice to step onto a newer bike that is going to be a little bit more competitive with some of the other motorcycles I have been challenged with as of late, namely Yamaha R6s and Kawasaki ZX6 R636s. So the timing on this motorcycle actually worked out perfectly as well. It allowed me a little bit of time to recoup from throwing all that money down on the R8, and also for this motorcycle to really come up and be an option for me. I bought it just over 2 weeks ago and ordered parts basically immediately. The last few nights have just been me up into the wee hours of the morning working on the bike, getting the brakes set up and everything as right as it possibly can be for me to go out for my first session tomorrow. It's been quite a journey over these last couple weeks with this bike, and in particular over the last couple days just getting everything squared away, and I'm really sorry that I forgot to turn the camera on for it, but we're here now, and I hope you are as excited as I am to see how this bike does out on track. So Triumph released the Daytona 675 in 2006, facelifted it in the 2009 model year, and made some additional changes in 2011, including adding the R model. Now, they completely redesigned the motorcycle in 2013, and the changes were pretty significant, which is another reason I decided it made sense to pick up this motorcycle. First, this bike weighs less than the 2012 Daytona 675R does. In stock trim, it's about 10 pounds less, and the center of gravity is a lot lower because the silencer for the exhaust has been relocated to under the body of the bike, rather than under the tail like the 2012 and prior bikes were. But outside of just the low mount exhaust, the engine's been completely redesigned and includes a higher compression ratio of 13.35 to 1 versus 12.65 to 1 on the 2012 Daytona 675, which results in some additional horsepower. Now, outside of that, the suspension has been slightly refreshed. It is still Öhlins Nix 30 forks in the front and Öhlins TTX shock in the rear, but the suspension has a little bit more travel, and the chassis geometry has been completely changed as well to make the bike steer a little bit faster and be more stable in a corner. So on the whole, it's just a better base for a race bike, and being that it already had this great bodywork, a lot of stuff already drilled for safety wire, the clip-ons, the GPR steering stabilizer, the Motion Pro throttle tube, it was really close to exactly where I needed it to be. But there were a couple things that I did need to change to feel comfortable on the bike. The first were the brakes. Now this bike still has the Brembo M4 monoblock calipers, same calipers that are on my 2012 Daytona 675R, but this bike had the original master cylinder, and while it is a Brembo unit, it isn't the best Brembo unit. So I went ahead and replaced it immediately with a Brembo 19 RCS master cylinder, as well as HEL stainless steel braided brake lines, and they're independent rather than the jointed setup at the caliper, which is the factory design, because this bike originally had ABS. Now, the ABS has been bypassed, which is great for the track and racing, so I don't need to worry about that at all. And the dual lines look a lot better than the jointed system. So next, this bike had Woodcraft rear sets from the get-go, and Woodcraft rear sets, nice piece, well made, but they're not adjustable in the way that I need them to be. So I opted for a set of Attack Performance rear sets. They're the same rear sets that I ran on my 2012 Daytona 675R, and they have an incredible range of adjustability. Not to mention that they feel rock solid when you're using the shifter, and the foot pegs are the grippiest foot pegs on planet Earth, I am convinced. Other than that, I needed a taller windscreen too, because the stock windscreen wasn't gonna cut it. So we have a nice zero gravity Corsa windscreen that is now on the bike. But aside from the windscreen, the brake master cylinder, and the rear sets, everything else was pretty much ready to go. I needed to relocate the bars so they were in a good position for me, and my reach was just right. I drained and refilled the cooling system with Redline Supercool just to make sure that I was within spec of what CRA requires in terms of engine coolant. I cleaned out the brake calipers and replaced the pads, which were some kind of EBC pads, and they were lightly used, with a set of Ferodo X-Race pads, since that is what I have liked so much running on my 2012 Daytona 675R. Cleaned and lubed and adjusted the chain. But outside of that, I just cleaned her up, and we are now out here at Buttonwillow Raceway Park for the first round of CRA's 2023 season, and my first round as an expert. So I do still have a couple action items to take care of tomorrow morning first thing. First, we're gonna take the bike over to JJ at Suspension Matters, get the suspension dialed in for me. It was previously set up for a 165-pound rider, and I weigh 230 pounds, so that's probably not gonna work for me, and I'm just gonna be bottoming out the suspension everywhere. So we're gonna go ahead and fix that up the best we can. In addition to that, I'm going to take the Metzler slicks that are on this bike right now and swap them out for a set of Pirelli takeoffs from my last race weekend. I've been running Pirellis for the last 7-8 months or so, and I'm very comfortable on them. So I don't want to throw too many things at this bike and have it be completely different. I know how the Pirelli tires work, and it's going to help me to be able to feel what the bike's doing and dial it in even more. But after we get those things taken care of, we'll be out on track tomorrow, and I'm going to ride this bike for the first time besides just ride it up and down the street to make sure that it works. So I'm nervous, I'm excited. This is definitely the prettiest race bike I've ever had, and it should go quite a bit faster than my old bike once we do get it all set up. So with that, I'm gonna wrap this one up, go get some rest, and get ready for tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, I would sincerely appreciate a gentle little click of the like button, and if you considered subscribing if you haven't already for more motorcycling content like this. I'm club racing, I'm at the expert level now, and I'm really excited to see where I stack up against the rest of the people that have been racing motorcycles for a while. Gonna be a lot of fun. And drop a comment below. Have you been thinking about club racing? Have you been thinking about buying a Triumph Daytona 675R? Let's talk about either of those things in the comments below. Definitely tune back in over the next week or so to see how I jive with this motorcycle, getting it out on track for the first time tomorrow, and we're gonna be qualifying and racing in the coming days. Sure to be a good time. I'm really excited to see where I can place on this bike and what kind of lap times I can put in. Last time I was here at Buttonwillow clockwise, configuration 13, on my 2012 Daytona 675R was in February of 2022. Did a best time of a 156.927, and I've gotten a lot faster since then. So hoping we'll be in the 55s, maybe 54s, or even 53s by the end of the weekend. But thanks again so much for watching, and I'll hope to catch you in the next one. Until then, later.